Howdy, y'all, and welcome to episode 4 of the Barnyard Banter podcast, where boots meet microphones and agriculture takes center stage.
We're your hosts, Peyton Roberts
and Riley Rinke. We're members of the Axel FFA chapter, and we're on a mission to bring the ag industry to life. One story, one laugh, and one barnyard tale at a time.
Each episode, we'll be chatting with farmers, ranchers, ag teachers, FFA members, and industry experts out there making a difference in the world of agriculture.
Whether you're hauling hay, feeding calves, planting crops, or simply just curious about where your food comes from, this podcast is for you.
So sit back, grab a sweet tea, or hop on the tractor as we dive into the wild, wonderful, and sometimes downright muddy world of agriculture. Welcome to Barnyard Banter. First off, we would like to thank our amazing guests for joining us today as we take a deep dive into the FFA world. Hey Riley, it is time for some trivia. What year were women allowed into FFA?
Oh, I got this. 1969.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, Payne, why don't you introduce our guest for today?
Our guest today is Cory Sinkule, who is an agriculture science teacher at Connally High School and is originally from Penelope, Texas. He graduated from Texas A&M University with a degree in agriculture science. He's from Area 8 and served as the 2018-2019 Texas FFA state president. We are so thankful to have you here today. Mr. Sinkule, can you tell us a little more about yourself?
Yeah, so I grew up in Abbott, Texas, which is not too far from Axtell. And my dad's side of the family was in row crop production, so a lot of farming corn, milo, I don't know if they did cotton as much, and then my mom's side of the family, my grandfather on my mom's side raised beef cattle, purebred beef masters. And so that's how I kind of got my start in agriculture. I basically grew up in it. And then that led me on my path in high school to eventually go to Penelope, where I had a really good ag teacher kind of take me under her wing and get me really involved in the FFA. And I just grew a passion for agriculture and the FFA through that. And that's led me to where I am now as an ag teacher at Connally High School.
So what were you all involved in FFA?
In high school, there was a lot. So in the fall LDEs, I was in creed speaking and quiz. Basically all 4 years. So I did junior creed speaking and junior quiz my freshman year, and then moved into senior after freshman year. In the spring, I was in the forage contest and the, what was it? Ag mechanics, I don't know what the official name is, but it's like one of the ag mechanics, not the applied engineering, but the other one. For 1 year, my ag teachers threw me into that. And then all 4 years I was in wildlife. I really enjoyed the wildlife team. I also got into speaking. I was in prepared speaking. My freshman year was in animal science, and the rest of the time it was in, I want to say ag business, because I wrote a speech about Bluebell ice cream. And then what else? I was in leadership roles throughout high school, so I was a district officer, area officer, eventually a state officer as well. And then I ran a beef cattle proficiency and was a star farmer, I guess you could say, in production.
Gotcha.
So you're really busy all the time.
Oh, and on top of that, I was in raising purebred beef masters, just like my grandfather. So I was showing beef heifers all 4 years.
When did you start showing? In high school, or have you been showing since you were younger?
I want to say it was fourth or fifth grade. I started showing those beef master females. My grandfather gave me one to show. And he wanted to see if I liked it or not. And so it wasn't a high quality animal. I don't think I won any show at all. Probably it was last place the whole time. But that kind of got me started. I was in the McLennan County 4-H doing that until I got into high school, and then I switched over to FFA.
Gotcha. So what first inspired you to get involved in FFA as a student and eventually run for state office?
My grandfather was an ag teacher at Penelope, believe it or not, and taught my ag teacher. And so there's a little personal connection with that. And so my ag teacher also taught my mom at Penelope as well. And so, it just kind of fit. Me going into the FFA, I felt like it was home as soon as I stepped into it. Granted, when I started high school at Penelope, I was like in a new world. Like everything was new to me. I didn't know how much I wanted to do. I didn't know what was out there because I knew of the FFA, but I didn't know about the FFA. And so my ag teacher really helped to open my eyes to everything that was available to me. And that kind of, once I got a piece of success and got a piece of like, this is where I belong, it kind of blew into the things that I wanted to do, blew up and really got going for me.
So tell us a little bit about your time as a Texas FFA state officer.
Oh, that's a loaded question. Okay, so it's a year. The way I like to describe it to people is it was the most impactful year that I've ever experienced, as far as personal development, as far as, the impact I was able to have on other people. It was just fast and furious with as much fun and, awesome experiences as someone could have. So do you want the long version or the short version? How much do you want me to talk about it?
However much you want to talk about.
Okay. So as soon as I got elected, we went to basic training with my team of 12 state officers. So we went to Lubbock. We had training in kind of like what we wanted the year to look like. So it was a lot of vision for the state, what we wanted to accomplish, a lot of personal values that we were identifying that we possessed and wanted to be able to present to, the general FFA membership for them to know about us. And then we got kind of the basic skeleton of what we wanted the year to look like. So what community service projects we wanted to have. Started thinking a little bit about state convention that we were going to end our year with. And then after that basic training, we kind of were sent on our way. Preston and I, so my first vice president who traveled with me, we got a little bit of training before we headed out, developing workshops and presentations that we were going to deliver to chapters. But it was about a week worth of that. And then we were off to our schools. The other 10 officers, vice presidents, they went to college. And as we were in their area for travel, they would join us, and they got also to speak to other chapters as they were requested. But Preston and I, we started visiting schools. We'd go to about 4 schools every single day of the week, which was a lot. And we would give those presentations, workshops that we'd developed. And then at the end of the week, we would, either go to his house or my house or wherever we were in the state, maybe a vice president's house just to stay the night. And then the next week we were on the road again, visiting those 4 schools every single day. And so we got to spend a lot of time getting to know FFA members, especially the ones that we would stay with the night before. So if a school had a morning visit, so they were the 8 o'clock slot, typically the ag teacher would put them up with either themselves or an FFA member host family. And so we would stay the night with that host family, and we really got to know that member, or a lot of times the chapter would invite the officer team over. And so we get to know that officer team really well. And so that was probably one of the best experiences that I remember having. I really enjoyed getting to see the, behind the scenes of not just a quick 1 hour with 30 to 400 different FFA members, but, more intimate, like you get to know those FFA members on the chapter level and get to see what their school is like. So what is, the program look like for you? What is your unique experience that I can learn from you? So I learned a lot more than I thought that I ever would, spending that time with FFA members at host homes. And so we would travel, I think at the end it totaled 300 high schools in the state, all the way from, down in Brownsville to El Paso up to, I forgot the very top of Texas, up in the Panhandle. Those chapters, that was probably early visits, so it's hard for me to remember what they were. And then all the way as east as, Marshall, Texas. And so we hit everywhere. It was really fun, really fast pace, but really eye-opening to see all the parts of Texas, what, the landscape's like, the cultural differences that exist. It was amazing. The year ended around, I want to say, April was our last visits. And then it was from then on out convention planning. Mm-hmm. So we would have sprinkled in, starting in January, a lot of convention planning for writing script, developing ideas for our retiring addresses. But it really, started to bring into focus that development of convention towards the end and rehearsing the scripts, going over where we're going to be positioned on stage, all that stuff in April. And then state convention was in July. And so there's probably a lot more to that than I just described, but that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Okay. How do you think your time as a Texas FFA state officer shaped who you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it brought me a lot of, a lot of clarity, a lot of, personal development that I was able to experience. So identifying my core values, things that, are true to me, that I find important in life, those values and practicing those virtues that I developed was really helpful in identifying who I am and how I develop. Working with the team has brought me a lot of, very important skills that I still use to this day. How to communicate well, how people like to receive feedback is a great example of this. So understanding who I'm working with, how they like to get feedback, whether I'm being very direct or indirect, whether I receive feedback in the manner that I like to receive it, has been important for me to understand. Well, even though someone else might be direct with me, it's just because I take criticism harshly, or I don't take it with a grain of salt like they probably intended. And so that kind of helped me develop an idea of, here's how I work with other people, and I'm going to apply that every time I come into a situation, whether I'm on, an ag teaching team of people or I'm in a group of people. That has really helped identifying, how I operate. And we did that through what was called the Berkman assessment. It's a personality assessment. They paid a lot of money in order for us to get it. It's a personality assessment that kind of identifies different target areas of your personality, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, whether you're people-oriented or task-oriented. And that kind of, there's more components to what developed that, but it was facilitated to us how we operate, how we like to express ourselves, and what we need in order to be our best selves. And so that Berkman assessment and that leadership training really opened my eyes to, oh, this is how I really am in a social setting. This is how I really am in a more, small group setting. This is how restless I can get, and I need more breaks in the day, or I need more time to express, physical energy and get out all that energy that I have. And so it didn't tell me what I am, but it kind of identified, here's your areas of how you normally behave. Here's how you kind of suggested ideas to get to where you're most comfortable and usual is. And it kind of guided performance in that way. And so I'd say that personal development kind of early on in the year, it stretched throughout the year, helped me kind of identify what type of personality I have, how I can work with other people and be my best self in other settings.
That's great. So out of all of that, what inspired you to become an ag teacher?
Oh, great question. So, a little bit of it came from my grandfather being an ag teacher, and he would have stories about when he was at Penelope, what he would experience in the classroom. He kind of, was a teacher to me in many ways. And the way that I learned, I really felt like it was important information to share, or an important way to teach other people about one of the most vital industries we have. I mean, nothing is more important than, staying alive and staying clothed, right? And that's agriculture. So my grandfather kind of got me into, learning about the animal industry by him raising cattle. And I'll never forget the first junior national show that he made me and my brother attend. There was a quiz contest to it where you had to learn about animals and their, reproductive performance, how all of the science behind that works, how to feed them. And he sat my brother and myself down in the living room, and he opened up a book, and I just knew that I was going to be there for about an hour and a half, him talking about cows. And he started to go through, here's how the reproductive performance of the animal works, and here's all the little details. And, I was 10 years old at the time, and learning all of this was, fascinating to me because it was new information. I was like, okay, so that's how that works. I need to learn all this for the quiz. And he also threw me in a speech, and he helped me write the speech, and I'd never given a speech before. And so his, guidance as an ag teacher kind of helped me into that area. And so then to know that he taught my ag teacher at Penelope, I didn't know that before I went to Penelope. It was once I was at Penelope, I found that my ag teacher was taught by my grandfather. That was really weird, experience. Yeah. And then, so that kind of, being able to see a really well-run program, really helped me get my motivation to become an ag teacher. I just wanted to be not a replica, but follow in the footsteps of someone who I saw as a role model for me. And so Miss Christian, she's now retired. She's not at Penelope anymore. She's living her happy retirement days, but still, helping out the school, and an ag teacher never stops even when they retire. But seeing her in that role really inspired me. And I say that as if I went to college after my year of service in the FFA to then become an ag teacher. That really wasn't the path that I followed. I went to A&M originally to go to be an agriculture loan officer. I was going to go into ag business and get my degree in that. But then I took my first ag economics class, and all that math scared me. I mean, I was, still thinking about it. It makes me tremble looking at all the graphs and stuff that I had to remember of how it all operated. And, they kind of mean for that class to be a weed out class anyways. Yeah. And it weeded me out. I told my advisor, I think I'm more of a science guy. And so I switched majors, went into ag science, and that passion for leadership, that passion for developing students kind of still stuck with me after my year of service with FFA was over. And so that led me to, have the realization I did want to be an ag teacher. And I think that was the best decision I ever made. I ended my degree in 2022 is when I graduated. I had a year of a semester worth, the spring semester of student teaching at Axtell. And I just fell in love. I loved seeing an active program. I loved being a part of that. And so I wanted to pursue that further. And so that's when I decided, this is for me. I'm going to be an ag teacher.
That's really cool. So what was something you learned during your year of service as a state officer that you now apply as an ag teacher?
I would say one of the things that I learned that I still use as an ag teacher would be how to manage students, how to get them, find what they are interested in, find what, makes them really cling to an opportunity that is presented in the classroom, what motivates students, how to get them motivated. In my year of service in FFA, as state president, I had to quickly develop rapport with students, because you only had about an hour that you had with students. You had to develop rapport with them really quick. Try to get them engaged in what you were learning. And so finding activities that kind of got them involved and very interested in what you were wanting them to do. And then how to keep that momentum going. And so I apply that still as an ag teacher. When I start lessons, I do it with, a fun, engaging activity that gets people moving, that gets them involved or thinking about what I'm going to be teaching them, and then continue that momentum throughout the class. Because I believe, in my personal philosophy of teaching, is if you're not having fun, it's going to be hard for the student to learn. If the kid's not interested, it's going to be hard for them to stay engaged. And so keeping that momentum in the classroom, things constantly going, is something that, carried through from my state officer year to the classroom.
So on the topic of teaching, starting a new FFA chapter is like no small task. What inspired you to take on that challenge?
I originally wasn't thinking about starting a chapter, and so my first year ag teaching, I was at VR Eaton High School in Northwest ISD, which is in Hazlitt. It's a really, a growing, I would say, suburb of Fort Worth. But it's, it's growing crazy big. I think it's one of the top 10 fastest growing school districts in Texas. And so I was at that school in my first year of teaching with a really great program. I mean, it was a National Chapter Award winning program. There was a lot of engaged kids doing a lot of different CDEs, LDEs. They ran a lot of proficiencies, great animal program for showing. And so I had a really great experience there, and I didn't want to leave at all until I had my, former high school principal / became superintendent at Penelope, who moved to Connally and is now their assistant superintendent over finance. And so he asked me, if you, wanted to start a program, would you at Connally? And I thought about it, and I was like, well, I'm going to, come interview. I'm going to come look and see what the school is like. And I'll decide then, because I really don't want to leave where I have a really solid program where I'm at. And he was like, okay, well, we really think you'd be a good fit. We really think that the school needs you to be starting their ag program. And so just come out and check it out. Well, I come and interview, and the principal tells me that there had not been an ag program at Connally since 2002, I want to say. So they did have an ag program. They had an ag shop. They had a bunch of welders at one point, and they had, one ag teacher that stayed there, I guess, the entirety of the time. I don't know how long he'd been teaching, but he had retired in 2002, and they kind of dissolved the program after he retired. And so they had, a construction science, they had other different programs that they ran through at diesel mechanics, but nothing that they really settled on that the kids, had a lot of interest in. And so they were like, well, let's start an ag program. We just need the right ag teacher. And so I interviewed, and, I really thought that the culture of the school, the way the teachers and the staff operate, the way they engage with kids and promote kids, really kind of sparked my interest in the school. And I said, okay, yeah, I'll start the program. I really enjoy the flexibility and the creativity I can have and steering the ship, I guess you could say. Here's the pathways that, we should follow based on student interest. There's a lot of kids that said, I want to weld. And so I was like, okay, I can be the ag mech teacher. And then a few kids said, I want to do floral. And so we hired on another teacher to teach with me floral. And so we're slowly growing the program. There was a lot of interest. I thought that all the kids, first year you take principles of ag. And so we should take principles of ag, all the students, regardless of whether they're a freshman through a senior, should take principles. And that way we have a good footing. So that way we can start building on that in the future. And that's really how I wanted to build the program. All of your FFA knowledge and workings and operations come from that first year, typically. And so I really thought that building that program out was something that I wanted to do, wanted to pursue. And I'm glad I did, because it was a lot of fun chartering and the building out that FFA program.
What were some of the biggest challenges with building the program throughout the year?
I want to say that just getting, students oriented to what is the FFA. A lot of the school that I work at, Connally, is not the most rural of places. There's students who have absolutely no idea what agriculture is. They probably have never stepped foot in a field before. They're very limited in their experience of agriculture. And so getting them to understand what the FFA is all about and what agriculture is all about was kind of a challenge, in the way that, not only is there this whole industry of people that produce our food and our clothes and all the materials that go into that, but also, there's the FFA side of things, the leadership aspects. And so trying to orient them to opportunities that they have and the difference that they can make by learning all this information kind of, got me to realize that, this is going to be, we're starting at level 0, at the ground level. And so that was kind of a challenge. You can't jump right into, here is anatomy and physiology of the beef cow. You have to start at, okay, this is a cow. The male is a bull, the basic terminology and all that other stuff. And so that also made it fun, though. It was a challenge, but it made it fun. I would say another challenge that starting a program runs into is the chartering process for the FFA program. Chartering, it's a lengthy, nerve-wracking process to go through. So there's like 15 different steps. The state has to see progress in the 3-circle component of agriculture education. Not only are you having a good classroom, you also have to be able to get students with projects or develop a supervised ag experience or and also develop out the FFA side of things. And so getting all the constitution written for the FFA and the bylaws, having regular meetings, being able to participate in events, that is a lot to handle in the first year. But I would say, even though it was a challenge, it was a good experience to go through, because now we know what all a well-run program should look like, especially in the eyes of the state, Texas FFA.
All right. So did you have any challenges with the community, ministry, or students, or did they get on board right away with the thought of ag?
A few of them got on board right away. A few, it took a little bit of convincing. It's funny because the admin, great. I mean, they really wanted to see ag grow. They wanted to see the program flourish, and that's what they're getting right now. But the students, on the other hand, they, absolutely had no idea what agriculture was. Once they kind of got a feel for it, a few of them really took hold, and they were the ones that became our FFA officers and our committee chairs. They, went all out and all in for FFA. And then a few of them, towards the end of the year, they were like, why didn't I know about this sooner? It was really funny because, I had a student who talked about, it was just a casual conversation. They talked about how they worked on their grandfather's farm and they did all the building fence, or they raised goats along with that. Mm-hmm. And they had a really good program going. And they were like, why didn't you tell me that I could show goats or run a proficiency award or a star award? And I was like, I did, but it probably didn't click in your mind when I first started talking about it. And so that student, wasn't an FFA member to begin with, but at the end of the year was like, man, I really wanted to do this. And so now he's hooked for the rest of the year. I'm going to go find a goat for him. And then another student I thought was really creative in what he had. It was like non-conventional agriculture, I guess you could say. He would fit under the category of small animal management, I want to say. And he raises sugar gliders, like the...
Yeah.
I guess squirrels?
Yeah.
I don't know what they are.
I've seen them before.
I know what they look like.
But he raises sugar gliders, and he was like, I didn't know that I could, raise that as a project in the FFA. And I was like, yeah, it's a small animal. I mean, we can definitely run you. And then you get to experience that side of record keeping and all the other stuff, and how it connects and the big picture to agriculture. And so there was the really successful ones that jumped right in. Those were our officers. And then we had a few that were kind of hanging back, had a lot going for them, that didn't know about it. And then I guess I want to say about a quarter of them were like, I'll try it out for a year, but
yeah,
I don't foresee myself continuing in the program. But I'm like, you just haven't found what you like yet, because there's plenty.
Mm-hmm.
So what has been your favorite moment throughout this year of building the program?
Oh, that's a hard question. Favorite moment. I would say that my favorite moment, oh my gosh, was seeing the officers present their, what do you call it, charter presentation. The one that the state executive director comes in and watches in order to say, you get your charter or you don't get your charter, and you have to try again next year. And if you don't get it next year, you don't get it. And so it was nerve-wracking, but our officer team had developed a presentation talking about their entire year, the plans that they had for the coming years, and seeing them present that to the executive director and absolutely nail it was my favorite, hands down, experience as an ag teacher, I would say, so far. And, especially at Connally, they were so excited at the end. They were like, whenever the executive director left, they were like, did you see how I answered that question? Do you see how we tied into what we were learning in the classroom? And I was like, oh, wow, just everything's coming together the way that it should. I was so happy. And that, I'd say that was my favorite part.
So on the impact and growth aspect, now that the chapter is established, what does success look like to you?
That's a good question. I would say success looks like identifying the talents of students and guiding them into the correct opportunities that meet those talents, identifying what experiences students have and how they can, pursue that further. Like, what career is going to be best for this student who originally said they wanted to be a welder, but what type of welding? Do you want to go into structural welding, pipeline welding, pressure vessel, And so identifying what that student is really going after, and guiding them into that area, whether that be an FFA opportunity or just, skill set that they need to have in order to go into a career. That would be my idea of what success looks like. Buckles and banners are a great thing. They motivate students to achieve more than they probably give themselves credit to achieve or think they can. And I would love to see banners line the wall of that hallway that we have going in outside the classroom. But that's not as important as I think getting students into the correct opportunities that guide them to where they ultimately want to be.
What has been your favorite student success story so far, either like at Connally, at VR Eden, or even like during your time at state office that you saw?
That's a good question. Student success story. There's two that come to mind. I'll talk about one at Eaton and one at Connally. At Eaton, there was a student who, before his freshman year even started, his parents wanted to meet with me. I was like, oh no, I'm a new teacher. I don't exactly know what I'm doing yet. They just knew that I was the state president and could guide their student in the FFA. And I'm like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. And so the parents and the student met with me and they kind of said, we think that we want to take this, FFA experience to the max, and we want to be all involved as we can. And so what opportunities can we pursue based on what we already have going? So he showed rabbits, and this student also was really involved in his 4-H club. Mm-hmm. And so he built a few ag mechanics projects as well. And so meeting with me, they said, we also want to pursue the leadership side. So what is it going to ultimately take to be a state officer? And I'm like, whoa, that's a big ask, to go to, before freshman year wanting to be a state officer. I mean, we can try to put you on a path to it. But you never know what's going to end up happening. And I was, when parents meet with you, you're like, I know your kid's amazing, but also all the parents' kids also think their kids are amazing. Granted, they are amazing, but, trying not to play favorites. Well, this kid was something special. So his freshman year, he did a lot of rabbit work. Like he was really involved with, I don't know what the Rabbit Association, letters are, the acronym for it, but he was really involved in that organization. But I would say towards the end of the year, he was on my wildlife team and they made it to state. Mm-hmm. That's a whole story in and of itself. I didn't think they'd make it to state. In fact, I told them, if you make state, I will dye my hair pink. I had to dye my hair pink because they made it to state in wildlife. And so he was on that team with them. But I think we were at state and we were going to run him for a proficiency. So the turn-in for a proficiency award. No, it was a star award. It was a star award in production that he was originally going to have. And he didn't have his record books all filled out for that and to pursue it. And I was like, I don't know if we're ready to submit that application. And then we just had a casual conversation after it was at the state wildlife contest. And he was like, yeah, I got to go home and I got to mow like all these lawns. And I'm like, you did what? You mow lawns? Yeah, I have my own business. And I'm like, that's turf grass management. That's like a whole proficiency and star award that I can run you for in and of itself. And so, I was like, we got to document all of this stuff. We got to fill out all these record books. I mean, do you keep notes? He was like, yeah, I keep notes. I'm like, okay, this is all these properties that you do. How long did you work there? He's like, oh, I have it in this log book. And I'm like, well, we got to put this in the AET record book system. And so we come back after the state contest. He fills all that stuff out. And sure enough, he makes it to the finals for the Green Hand Star in Agribusiness. And so he's one of the 4 finalists, and he does an interview. And it's funny because after the interview was over, one of the ag teachers or someone who was on the panel that interviewed him was like, your kid was hilarious. And I'm like, oh no, that's not good. He's like, no, it was good, because he demonstrated, success in his skill areas that he documented. I'm like, what did he put? He said that he had gone from 10 broken mower blades every month in the beginning of, his year to maybe 1 or 2 every month at the end of the year. And we asked him the question, how long, or why were you breaking so many mower blades in the beginning? And he was like, well, I realized that you can turn the mower off to go over obstacles and around obstacles that don't need mowed, like rocks and things. And then you turn it back on. And I was like, oh my gosh, this kid. So seeing him eventually, so he ended up winning. He was the state winner, I guess last year. Yeah, it would be last year in the Green Hand Star for agribusiness. And seeing him be successful after, meeting with me at the beginning of the year and saying, let's map out a journey. Granted, he probably didn't see himself going in the way in the FFA that he originally thought he would. But seeing him take that direction, that was a great success. And it was really fun to watch. Fast forward to this past year at Connally, one of the students who ended up being an officer, a successful moment, I would say, in that aspect was he is not a traditional agriculture kid. He doesn't know much about the industry, or didn't when he first got into my class. And he was a talker, and I had to, a lot of times I would have to get onto him and say, I'm trying to teach. Unless it's on topic, don't talk. Like, I need you to focus. And then but he was also good in the aspect that in class, he was a motivator for the rest of the class. He's like, oh, Mr. Sinkule said we got to stay on topic. And so everyone would kind of follow his suit and be like, okay, yeah, we got to stay on topic. Well, his talking kind of was a blessing for him, because he found that extemporaneous speaking was where he belonged. And so he got into extemporaneous, and for not knowing a lot about agriculture, he advanced past the district level and was able to place, I want to say, 6th at area. Don't quote me on that, but he did pretty good at area. And this is, his first experience in that competition. And so I'd say that was a really cool success story too, having someone who knew nothing about agriculture prior to then being successful in talking about a random topic in agriculture.
So what legacy do you hope to leave, not just in the school you're at, but in ag education as a whole? Ag education as a whole, a legacy that I want to leave. Well, I would say that legacy is a big word. I don't think it's anything that I'm setting out to accomplish. I would say whatever is a byproduct of what my everyday looks like ends up being my legacy. And so if that means being a really good ag teacher to the students that I teach at Connally, motivating and inspiring them, then that's my legacy. I'd be known as a motivator and inspirer. If I was someone who taught really good skills, that, someone could go into the industry for and be hired right away because, they developed those skills from what I was able to teach, that would be a great legacy. But there's, I guess, no one thing I'm set out to accomplish. I don't think I want to be known for anything in specific, but I would just say, being known for being a good ag teacher. There's plenty of good ag teachers. I mean, Ag still has great ag teachers. I would say that I would want to be the person that my students need me to be for them. That's great. So we have a little quick fire round for you. So CDEs or LDEs?
I would say CDEs.
Dr. Pepper or Coke?
Dr. Pepper.
Favorite place to have convention?
I would say, that's a hard one, Fort Worth.
Okay. Retiring address or election speech?
Election speech.
No, this one might be a little difficult, but A&M or UT?
A&M all the way.
I'm with you on that one.
Okay, so today's Ag Report is over Texas FFA membership. Today, we're spotlighting some impressive numbers from Texas FFA, the largest state in membership numbers. As of this year, Texas FFA has over 182,000 members, which is over 42,000 members than 5 years ago. There are even more than 1,100 local chapters statewide. That's right, from Amarillo to Brownsville and everywhere in between, FFA is growing strong. This surge in membership reflects not only the state's deep roots in agriculture, but also the increasing interest in leadership, technology, and ag science among young Texans. We'll now turn it over for our last question.
All right, so we have some fun wrap-ups. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone interested in running for a state office or interested in becoming an ag teacher?
Oh, wow. The kind of two different questions. So first question, I would say for just running for state office, if you're wanting to be a state officer, really start to think about what experiences have made you into who you are and what it is that motivates you to dedicate almost an entire year to serving members. Is it that you really want to share the story of agriculture? Is it you really want to find students that need someone to be inspired by and motivate them to achieve things that they didn't know about or didn't know that they could achieve? Or is it, something that you have like a connection to? Kind of figure out, it's not a cheesy thing to say, but kind of cheesy, is figure out your why. Like, why do you want to be a state officer? And then if you want to run for state office, start figuring out what are some of those experiences that you've been able to do on, the chapter level, your district level or area level, whatever capacity you served in. What are some of those experiences that have molded you into who you are and that you've been able to mold others and that you can be able to talk about whenever they start to interview you? That and be fun, be likable. No one's really going to vote for someone that they don't like. So if you be likable and then you can share those stories, I think you'll win people over and you'll really get into that position. Oh, sorry. Second question about the ag teacher. Yeah. So if anyone wants to be an ag teacher, what advice would I give? I would say, can you handle problem people? The students that give you heck. Eventually, they will come back and thank you, because I've had it happen already. They gave me grief the entire year. They resisted me when I was like, you really should be working on this, and they really didn't want to work on that. Or like, say it was an FFA opportunity, training for a team. They didn't see themselves being successful, and I would, kind of guide them into, I really think you should study for this because this is going to be important. And then they study for it and they're like, I'm so glad you made me do that. And for those students who, might not want necessarily to pursue ag and they're just stuck in there by a counselor saying, you have to take this to graduate. Because this is your only option. And so can you balance the two? Can you kind of get those really motivated students to latch on and kind of help those who really don't want to be in the program find something that gets their interest going and get them involved? And so if you can handle different personality types and you have the patience, I guess patience would be a really important factor. And, the grit, just to be able to survive the year, because there's a lot of things, and in addition to developing curriculum and your lesson plans to teach throughout the year, there's a lot on the backside of ag teaching that you could have a whole nother podcast on just what is ag teaching, that you need to kind of have in mind. Like, can you be willing to spend more time outside of the classroom than just an hour a week? Can you really spend time visiting projects, going to stock shows, doing all the training for teams? So I would just say, for those two answers, do you have the grit, and find the reason why you want to go into it and let that guide you into it?
That's amazing. All right, Peyton, how can our listeners get involved and even suggest topics that they want to hear?
If you want to get involved, you can follow us on Spotify, YouTube, or our Instagram page. And if you want to suggest topics or potential guests that you'd like to see, you can DM us on Instagram.
All right, how can our listeners contact you if they have any questions or just want more information?
Yeah, if you email me at Cory, Cory, Sinkule, Sinkule at gmail.com. You'll hit, I'll respond really quick.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you so much for listening to our podcast.
We are excited about our upcoming podcast that will air the first and third Mondays of every month.
Next on our podcast, we'll have 2 guests to talk about their amazing SAE projects and their future plans.
Thank you for listening.
Peace, love, ag.